Welcome to Cut Daisies and Unicorns, and we are back. We took just a smaller break this time in between seasons, but this is season 4, and we are on episode 1. And this is a way, as we started season 3, talking about fresh starts and beginnings, or re-beginning. I don't even know how you'd say that, but somehow looking at that next step, like after we're talking about restarting or re-beginning, or I don't know, can you re-begin?
I think
or it should just be stated differently.
I think there's things in the world that you can begin multiple times. And so as a fresh start, we end up moving into that this is a new season. And so you can begin a new season.
Yeah.
Or chapter. Or a new page. I mean, there's people read new books or books that are new to them, even if they're old books.
Right.
But where do you start? At the beginning. Like you don't start at the end and then like work backward on a book.
Sure.
Yeah. So this is, new beginnings, fresh starts.
I have heard of some people reading the ending and then going back to the beginning, which seems weird to me, but like they can't fathom not knowing. And so it's like, like especially if it's like a mystery.
So these are people that walk
solve it
into
and then
a party.
Go back and create it.
Yeah, they walk into a party and be like, "Hey, all the spoiler alerts. I need everybody to tell me," and then they decide whether they want to watch the movie or not.
Right.
Okay. Well, love to hear from our lovely, listeners if there's any said person like that out there. Yeah. Now I'm avoiding the double of us because we have a fog issue.
We do. It does look like we are in a smoky room.
Yeah, but we're not, because when you do the flash to Phil,
right.
And
we're clear.
not Phil flashing you, it's if you're listening to this, you're not seeing any of this, but
right.
There's been rain, and the humidity's high.
Right.
And apparently in our gear, we are condensating water as we speak, which means that for whatever reasons, as the cameras are warming up, they're creating their own little fog machine effect, which is, kind of cool, except that when I go to do the color correction and get it all set for your lovely face, and then my lovely face, then when we get back to the center camera, it will be really faded. So I don't know. We'll use this as a photo effect of sorts.
Well, we can always, have you go on a little bit of a tangent, and then I can go and pull the lens off too.
Oh, well, yeah.
So we could do that.
Now hold it. Am I becoming known as the folks? Really? Am I becoming the tangent-driven host? It's a place to emotionally express myself. Yeah.
No, it's good.
Yeah?
No, and there's nothing wrong with tangents because we're
There's
filled. we're, the whole thing is filled.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got all kinds of tangents.
Well, I got to bring the feel somehow.
Right.
That's hilarious. Just for everybody to be able to see this.
Right.
We were commenting because we've gone through and cleaned all 3 cameras and the lenses, and we were commenting, like, this look right now looks like Phil and I have been smoking it up in this room, and we don't mean tobacco.
Right. I see you're in a smoky room.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Smell of wine and cheap perfume. I don't think we wear cheap perfume, though.
I don't wear perfume.
I don't either.
But I do have an essence.
You do have an essence.
Yeah. As I've become more of a recluse, my essence, I haven't replenished my essence.
Uh-oh.
And I've got like, You know how there's this story in the Bible? I think it's in the Old Testament.
Yeah.
Where I believe it was Elijah
Mm-hmm.
went to the widow's house, and the widow and her son, and he asked them to give him something to eat, and it may have been the son that says to Elijah, "Hey, we got enough like flour and oil for our last meal, and then we're gonna curl up and die.
Yeah.
And you're asking us for food because there was a famine in the land."
Mm-hmm.
And so Elijah says, you really don't even know who you're talking to. And I think the King James language would be like, I bid thee, to make these cakes. And they ended up eating for a sustained amount of time.
Their oil and flour, whatever it was,
little cakes.
Never ran out, right?
Well, I mean, it was a Middle Eastern tortilla.
Yeah.
Maybe known as not a falafel, but what is that? That bread, pocket bread,
right? Like the naan bread and the unleavened.
Naan, or naan bread.
Mm-hmm.
Which naan bread is not like spelled None. It's Naan.
Uh-huh.
And if you need me to say it like a way that your mind can take it in, Naan versus Naan.
Naan.
Which is different than nan or nanny, who apparently has a cousin called au pair.
The nanny and the au pair.
Yeah.
See where I'm talking about with the tangents? Like, there's plenty. I mean,
tangent.
We're full
I feel like tangent, when I go on a tangent, it's more emotionally charged.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I escalate and don't realize it until I realize how emotionally charged I am as I'm like going off on some specific subject.
Yeah.
And versus a rabbit trail or any other mindless, senseless circle of words. I mean, we are lyricists at heart.
We love words. I love words.
Creating the culture and the craft of using, is it etymology?
Etymology. Yeah.
Etymology, yeah, see? I mean, and if you're wondering how deeply we prepped for this today, episode 4. Hey, dude, we're back.
Right.
Season 4. So, how many times when people train for the Olympics, do they show up really early, for all their practices and stuff like that, and their training and can you imagine, like, how many more 100-yard dashes or 100-meter dashes does a 100-meter dash runner run than a marathoner? Like, marathoners don't even train as a marathon. They train in like legs and build up and then like do the big run and then they build back, and they, all that stuff. Right. But have you thought about, like, does the 400 runner have it easier than the 100-meter runner? Like, you got 100 meters.
Right.
Well, you can run that 4 times before you get to the distance of the 400 meter.
Mm-hmm. And are you saying then that the
shorter the race,
but then
the more you got to work.
But you're also then doing it more often, and you actually might be covering more ground.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering about.
Right,
yeah.
And that is a good question.
Energy expel. I mean, like, okay, so 100-meter runner shows up for practice. Going to run 100 meters. They run 100 meters. Then they go back and they run another 100 meters. Then they go back and run another 100 meters. And then they go back and they keep running 100 meters.
Right.
For 8 hours all day long. I mean, like, when you break it down, like, that's a lot of 100-meter races.
Right.
But the dude running the mile, that's not the same. And then after you run a mile, how long does it take to recover before you get to go run another mile? These things make my head tired.
Assuming with professionals, especially like a mile is pretty much nothing to them.
Well, if you're a 100-meter dash dude,
Yeah.
or a dudette, I think a mile would be a long time. It'd be a long distance. Like sprinters are not like they're
not meant to sprint a mile.
No. Well, and actually, some would say that, like, I believe the longest sprint is actually a 400.
Probably.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but
Yeah.
sounds about right.
Yeah. I broke 60 in the 400
Yeah.
one time. I was only in track for 1 year.
But you broke it.
They throw me back, which I mean is not. That's not fast.
Yeah. I did some relays. I did some sprinting. And again, it was like because I played soccer, so then soccer is a game of sprints. Like I would say it's a series of sprints, which is yeah.
And it's different conditioning, different training, different muscle groups,
right.
Like all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, other than like you are using the same appendages.
Sure.
Typically.
Right.
If you're built that way to run with your legs.
Yeah, and you would say, so soccer doesn't use your hands and neither does sprinting. Well, I guess motion, sure.
Yeah. So check this out. I broke a 60-second 400. The men's world record right now, set in 2016.
Yeah.
43.03. Under 45 seconds.
Hmm.
It took me 15 more seconds. Or you could think of it, I was within 15 seconds of holding.
I was going to look at it from that angle first. So, is that more of like the half glass full, half empty kind of pessimist optimist? I mean, because I was thinking, wow, like you were only 15 seconds off.
Yeah. So Google, as we continue scrounging around the internet, what is the average time to run a 400 meter? A 55-second time is high school JV level. A 51-second time is varsity level, and around 47 seconds if you're an elite 400-meter high school runner. Well, that's funny because then what they're saying is that to become a world record holder athlete, the difference is 5 seconds. And we thought I was close with 15.
Right.
Whoa.
Whoa.
I watch a bunch of cop shows, and I watch these policemen chase down bad guys.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I'm not in shape to be that guy.
Well, but then you also, I don't know if you've ever recognized some of the police officers, but I always look at it and say, that guy's going to run after me.
I know. Right.
Like, I think I can outrun him.
Well, I'm sure you could. Yeah. Like motion and movement. Oh, wow. Yeah. So I think that it's really interesting, too, that the female 400-meter record holder has held that record since 1985.
Hmm.
Who
was that?
The year I graduated high school. Marita Koch.
Marita Koch, yeah, I don't know her.
I think it's Koch. Coch.
Yeah, it could be pronounced like a whole bunch of different ways.
Yeah, which, yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Well, there's 18 more rows. I wonder what this means. Oh, there we go. Takes me to Wikipedia. Yeah. Wade, who currently holds it, he's from Africa. And second place is a gentleman from Asia. And then third place is a gentleman from Europe. Yeah.
Yeah, isn't was it Ethiopians that are always the ones that are in the marathons that can run, ridiculous? They win pretty much every year. I think it's Ethiopians. So something, with that nation, those people, I mean, like, are some gifted runners.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. People are running hard. Actually, very interestingly, the number 8 holder, Fred Curley
Yeah.
of the United States, on July 27th of 2019, ran a 43.64 in Des Moines, Iowa. My guess is that was at the Drake Relays.
Probably.
It would make sense.
Right.
You know.
'Cause those
Although Drake Relays are usually in the spring, and this was in July.
are,
So I'm not really sure what event was going on in Des Moines.
Is that the Dam to Dam? No, that's a marathon. Though,
yeah,
isn't it?
yeah.
So that wouldn't make sense.
People remember Michael Johnson, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
He
ran
had the golden shoes.
43.18, and he actually held that record from 1999 until 2016. And I don't have any article on Wade Van Niekerk from South America.
Yeah.
In regards to so Michael Johnson held the record for a really long time.
And then the record has to be in a like fully sanctioned kind of competition, right? I mean, you couldn't just say, "Hey, Steve, let's go out and I'll time you on the track."
Right.
All right. I mean, like, there has to be within that realm of like, this is a competition and this is where we're gonna, have all of the official timekeepers and all that good stuff, right?
You got to have people.
All right.
And you have to be sanctioned.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, Steve, we're not in a smoky room anymore.
Oh, it cleared up. I figured it might.
Yeah.
We get it hot enough, long enough, and we burn off the haze.
Right.
Although this is really funny, I took a large bag of garbage out as I was heading over to our studio here to record, and somebody was smoking it up. Like, I thought it was the car that passed by me in the alley.
Yeah.
But then I was like, no, it's still wafting. So it was coming from the apartments next door. And I thought, man, 9:30 in the morning, that is an early go. But then, like, if you see the world out there, I mean, smoking some weed might help people make it through the day.
I believe they call that a wake and bake.
Whoa.
Yeah, so there and then, I mean, if you're looking at it, there is there's like the difference between the indica and the sativa.
You know what? It's
And-
so funny you bring that up, and
Yeah.
people are going to be asking.
Right.
They're going to ask. They're going to say, "How come you guys know so much about weed?" And again, for the record, not that anyone really cares. I've never smoked weed, but what you speak of, actually, I learned on the streets of Des Moines.
There you go.
Yeah.
What'd you learn?
I learned that one, like, doesn't have you get all chill, but it actually brings clarity and energy.
Right.
And I don't know if that's the sativa.
Yeah, I always mix up the two. I mean, I know that there's a whole bunch of weed smokers that are like yelling at the screen right now, like which one's which. But
Come on, you guys!
Right.
Come on! Well, how do you not even have this all figured out?
Right. There are weed tenders out there, like the bartenders. I mean, that will help you navigate that.
Wow.
Yeah, there's. I mean, and so more places are popping up in Chicago with, we're like a year. What are we? It started 2020 legalization. Well,
Yeah.
decriminalization here in Illinois.
Yeah.
And then they just super high taxed it. Like, apparently Illinois, like, go figure, is like the highest taxed marijuana in the nation.
So I had mentioned to you that I met a person in Davenport this weekend who approached me about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just, for the sake of not getting anyone in trouble. I'm not going to mention any names, any occupations.
Right.
Just that in this setting, they all call them lefties. Like, hey, you want to go out back and have a lefty with me? Now, I mean, and so this gentleman was like 3 times asked me if I wanted to have a left-handed cigarette, which, I mean, for all of those in the world who are like, I don't even know why we're talking about weed. The very first time I even heard really about weed was when I went to a cathedral concert and the bass singer, George Jans, was talking about being in the Navy and smoking them left-handed cigarettes. That wacky tobacco.
Right.
And so, anyway, it took me back because I haven't heard somebody, I've heard, I mean, probably in the last 5 years or whatever, people just talk about blunts, and stuff like that, or one shots, or anyway, but so I asked him if he went over to Chicago because it's Davenport, Quad Cities, it's just across the river. He's like, oh my gosh, no. He goes, why would I do that? He goes, that stuff's all expensive and you're giving the government all your money. He goes, I just have an elf he goes, my elf has me set up and I know that I'm getting what I'm getting and there's nothing mixed up in it and all this other stuff. Which, the death of all of us will be our additives, right?
Oh, yeah.
Think about it. Do you put sugar on your cereal?
I don't eat cereal.
Right. As a child, would you put sugar on your cereal?
Yeah, I as a child, I didn't. I was in and out of like allergic to milk kind of stuff.
Oh,
so
yeah.
That's the reason why I didn't start eating cereal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've talked about my cereal addiction.
Right.
With half and half.
We have.
Yeah.
That's it.
So, and I haven't had any cereal with half and half for at least 3 or 4 months now. So, good. It's not happening regularly. Right. But, it's the additives. But I would love Life cereal, half and half, and 3 big tablespoons of sugar on that. Ooh. Dude, yeah. So, it's your additives. What are you adding?
It's true.
And so then people are like, well, I drink soda or pop, depending on what
part of the nation you're from.
Yeah, soda or pop, and they're like, well, I drink diet. Well, there's still an additive.
Oh yeah.
It's called an artificial sweetener. Which when artificial sweeteners turn into real sweeteners, like artificial intelligence turning into like real like conscious intelligence.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if that can ever happen, but it's the additives. It's not like gather hunter stuff that's going to kill you off.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say the additives are dangerous, which is the reason why there were people who were saying like diet is even worse for you than regular
there's
soda.
No question. I know that for a fact in my own evolution of taking care of my body.
Yeah.
Ask a doctor.
Right.
An intern. And the intern told me, he's like, yeah, you're the little gland that secretes insulin, it's responding to these artificial sweeteners, but then as it's secreting that, then it doesn't have anything to break down. And so then you wonder why all of a sudden you got a gland that won't make what it's supposed to make because it was making more of it because it, yeah. And then there's cessation, like where your brain tells your body, oh, you're full now. You don't need it because what did you do? Because if you drink a regular soda and it's got all the, like pounds and pounds of sugar in it, then your body's like, hey, we've had enough.
Right. Yeah. Cut it off.
Yeah.
We're done.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing with like salt, right? There's already so much sodium salt that's built into so many things. Don't even
talk to me about it. Adding
then
salt.
What we do is,
I love.
I always add. I add salt to stuff. So
yeah.
Yeah.
I have moved into
additions.
The only salt that I add is a flavored salt. So my 2 go-tos are Lowry's and celery. Celery salt. Oh, yeah. But I mean, I used to eat salads and like crack a pepper, and I'd be like to the maitre d', not a maitre d', probably some waiter. I'm like, yeah, where's the salt grinder? Well, we don't have one of those. Well, you got a pepper grinder. Well, that's because it makes it fresh pepper. I'm like, well, I'd like some fresh salt, please. But man, there is nothing like
Right.
there's nothing like a salad with pepper and then salt cracked down on it, and then against like an Italian dressing or some vinaigrette. You got the sweet, you got the salt. I'm actually salivating right now and we're just talking about salt additives.
Yeah. I started using that pink Himalayan salt from Costco.
Is it from Costco or Himalaya?
Well, so Kirkland brands everything whether or not that it's actually, I mean, I think I don't know, it could be false advertising, but, they call it pink Himalayan salt, so I'm like, it doesn't show up pink to me when I crack it, but...
You know what? And speaking of additives, my dentist, whom, on annual April, I went to see my dentist. And then I went back because 6 month check cleaning. And hey, for everybody who wonders out there, the teeth that I have in my mouth
are all yours?
No. Gosh, no. No. I've got fake ceramic donations, speaking of additives.
Yeah.
And but apparently the ones that I do have that are my own, I'm taking care of well enough that they will continue to be my own as long as I continue. But he's like, I like your gums. He's like, you're doing really well. I'm like, man. But
do you floss too?
Oh yeah.
No.
Well,
like
probably
daily or
multiple times a day.
Really?
Oh yeah. Wow. I think in the aging process, and we can ask our older listeners who've gone through similar things with their teeth, but as the older you get, like there's gaps and things stick.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like walking around with like celery sprigs, sticking out and bothering the side of my mouth. No, man, you just pull out the dental pick floss and you don't have to like tear off the string and wind it around your face. I mean, like what part would ever keep you from flossing? The inconvenience, right? And I mean, I've proven I can waste money on a bunch of other shit. So why not just go ahead and buy it's already strung up, and then just go ahead. And then the dental hygienist who cleaned my teeth last time, she's like, if you just spent 30 seconds more going through when you floss, she goes, you'd be in great shape. And apparently I am now, at least in my mouth. Yeah. And so with that being all said, the first time I met my dentist, he looked at me and he's like, so tell me the story about the teeth that you are missing. And I'm like, well, everyone's a tragedy.
Everyone that's not yours is a tragedy.
Well, no, every missing tooth. Like, I've got gaps in the back, gaps in the side, like he's like, well, he's like, so why no dentist? And I said, well, I know that you perceive me as a privileged white male with a great beard, because he'd already mentioned as he inspected my neck for tumors and just different things. He's like, I gotta.
Dentist does that?
Yeah, he does.
Huh.
He's like, I gotta wade through all the cabbage. Let's make sure there's nothing growing underneath there that shouldn't be. Which I thought, that's appropriate. I really appreciated him being that thorough.
Yeah, I didn't know they did. I've never had a dentist do that.
Well,
before.
Maybe you're going to the wrong damn dentist.
Apparently, yeah.
So, I mean, with care like this. So anyway, he looked at me and he couldn't believe that I actually spit that out. I said, I know that that's how you perceive me. I said, but my privilege is more privileged than people who aren't privileged. But my privilege has had its fair share of financial difficulty. And quite frankly, I'm scared of y'all. And he's like, well, why is that? I said, because I don't go, and then I get a cavity, and then you pull the tooth, and then, or you tear it down and you put on a crown and all this stuff. And he goes, yeah, but if you'd be going regularly, you wouldn't have these problems. And I'm like, yeah, but then, then it was about price tags. And I'm like, I only have recently in the last decade had dental insurance. Well, so what do?
All right.
You pay the bills that keep the heat on. You pay the bills that keep the water on sometimes. And, I mean, and then you feed your kids and you raise them up and, I mean, like sacrifices. I'm a walking testimony of the sacrifices I've made by the amount of teeth that I have in my head. It's a direct, all of that.
Yeah, because regular insurance doesn't come with dental or vision.
Right.
I mean, dental and vision is like an extra. I mean, and the reason why is because dental is expensive and so is vision.
Yeah.
And so insurance is like, well, we're going to cover you for health. And that means we'll give you like a checkup a year. But the dental and vision, that's going to cost you.
Yeah.
I mean, and so that's where you're talking about. I mean, I think we've mentioned it before with musicians, like artists, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they don't, there's the cost of insurance, and people are like, yeah, I'd rather eat than have a shelter over my head. And so that's going to be my first cost. I'm not going to pay for insurance. I mean, that's a way, that's almost like a luxury, and I don't have the ability to live that life of luxury. So there's things that you cut out, just like you mentioned.
Yeah.
And so I mean, I don't think I even have dental or vision on my insurance. So
See?
That's the reason why I'm always like, all right. So my wanted, or my contacts are like, supposed to change them every week or every 2 weeks. It goes a month.
Yeah.
Month and a half.
Oh, man.
Why? I mean,
right.
Like, to me,
Yeah.
I'm not thinking like, all right, I've got to stretch these out more. It's like, I don't see the need of why I need to change these right now.
Yeah, but then there's an optometrist out there who will eventually listen to this episode, and he's like, oh, my word, do you realize what you're doing to your eyes?
Right. Oxygen levels and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And they've told me every time I go in and re-up for my contacts.
Yeah.
But it's always like, yeah. Like, I know, like, it's fine.
Yeah.
There's sometimes I forget to, I should probably change these.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll take a 6-month, contact and stretch it out a year.
Wow.
So,
folks, there you hear it. And what's really interesting is when the doctor looked at my teeth then, because of the color, and he said 2 things to me. He goes, oh, you grew up on a farm, didn't you? I said, yeah. How can you tell? He goes, because you didn't have whatever the additive to water is that they put in.
Yeah.
Not chlorine.
Chloride?
Yeah. So when cities put chloride into the water, which if you want to go down the government's out to get us conspiracy, you should type in chloride in water conspiracy and see what Google tells you about that. All right. And he's like, and tetracycline. He goes, when you got into your adolescence, he said, did they give you tetracycline? And I'm like, oh, yeah. I said, I had a terrible acne issue. He goes, oh, yeah, I can tell just by looking at your teeth. He knew I grew up he profiled me for growing up in rural, he didn't know, well, he may have known by that time that I was in Michigan growing up, but that I grew up on a farm because there was no chloride in the water, and due to the coloring of my teeth, the tetracycline that I took, which I'm sure I should have been a part of some class action suit, and then that would have given me all kinds of money to be able to go to the dentist. But, c'est la vie.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what, archaeologists would do when you're looking back at fossils.
That's how I'm going to think of it. I'm going to think about it as like
right.
I've had an archaeologist look at me while I was alive and be able to tell me more about me.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. It's funny, Vice did an article on that, a deep dive into the conspiracy theory that governments are controlling us with fluoride.
Fluoride, not chloride. Yeah, fluoride.
Right, yeah,
it's fluoride.
fluoride.
All right, so everybody screaming at their devices.
As I said, chloride.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Is fluoride in our water the biggest public health cover-up of our times? Or just truthers having a rant? Wake up, sheeple.
Oh, so anyway, so then, I mean, just think about it. We haven't heard about lead in the water in Flint, Michigan for a while.
We haven't.
Yeah, but still, there's people worried about fluoride additive, and yet the willingness to take care of old pipes and lead in water. Yeah.
Which I think is also an issue with Chicago water, but
Yeah.
yeah.
They keep paying off the inspectors so that the...
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, so some people have mentioned like Chicago would be the next Flint, Michigan.
Yeah.
Which Chicago is way bigger than Flint, Michigan.
Right.
Well, now, I mean,
Right.
there was the heyday of Flint, Michigan with cars and all that other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Automobile manufacturer.
Automobiles.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've never dug into this conspiracy theory before about fluoride. So.
Well, I am a wealth of not thought through ideas that have come in my head. Just people are like, where did you gather this? Oh, I've known about the fluoride conspiracy for a couple decades.
Yeah.
It's the first time we brought it up here. So, should you drink the water?
Yeah, I always say if you're just drinking out of the tap, which I mean I used to do back in the day, but I said if you're just drinking out of the tap here, like in Chicago, like people who come like don't do that. Like there's that's the reason why we I mean we have the privilege, of being able to bring in some water from the outside that I mean, of course then it probably also has additives as well, but yeah. But unless you're using that water, I mean you're boiling it, using it for coffee possibly. I mean, and I know that there's a whole bunch of like barista coffee makers out there that they have to test their water pH balance and all of that.
Wow.
To make the perfect cup of coffee, which I don't know. I'm not in that realm of perfection with coffee, so.
But I could talk to you about hops.
Yeah. I love hops though.
Don't ever have to worry about purifying your hops when it's in a tin can.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, how about the connection between aluminum and Alzheimer's? Am I tripping you up on that?
Yeah, so go into it. Let's
No,
figure.
it just is like so much of like pop and soda was, in tin cans, aluminum cans, that people were saying that the early or one of the factors that they thought had to do with aluminum in our system. And I'm not sure if that has to do with the connectors going on in our brains and being affected by aluminum and higher concentrations. Again, we're talking about the additives.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. What is a cocaine addict most worried about?
OD?
No. I mean, I personally haven't interacted with someone addicted to cocaine.
Yeah.
I have interacted with people who were occasional users. People are like, how do you get to be an occasional user? Well, I know people. And I know people who, like, they wouldn't do cocaine in their hometown, but if they went on vacation, say for a golf outing, that they would do cocaine. And, but yeah, it's not about ODing on cocaine. What they're worried about is they're worried about what the cocaine's cut with. What additives?
Yeah. What else is in there?
And so, like, you think about it. What's the big deal in drug use right now? Is it fentanyl?
Fentanyl is dangerous.
Yeah, because micro levels of fentanyl can take down an elephant, and yet people are doctoring up these drugs and doing that. Now, what I have noticed is the survival rate of dirty cocaine
Yeah.
is really high when you don't do cocaine.
That is a public service announcement right there. When you mentioned Alzheimer's, though, I was taken back to, and this was, I don't know, it was there was a Boston Legal. There was a show called Boston Legal.
Okay, yeah, back in the day.
William Shatner and
And what does it feel like to have the last name Shatner? Like, I mean, if you Shatner yourself. Anyway.
But they were talking about Alzheimer's because they thought that he had some early onset.
Yeah.
And the doctor, it was mentioned that there's not really much of a difference between Alzheimer's and mad cow disease. And he's like, and the only way that you can actually test whether the difference between Alzheimer's and mad cow is pretty much after you're dead, they look at your brain and find it.
Whoa.
So we could actually, with even an outbreak of Alzheimer's, just have an outbreak of mad cow disease.
Huh.
So,
but mad cow disease wouldn't be limited based on like age.
No.
So then there would be the scope.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, ultimately, I think that, you get to a certain point in life and your body's no longer building up, but it's degrading.
Mm-hmm.
And so, this is, the circles of life.
It is the circles. Yeah, so as your body, I mean, then I'm assuming then the preservatives are going to do things to your body differently as you continue to age too.
Well,
right? I mean, it's the same thing. Like when I was in high school, I would drink Mountain Dew or Pepsi or and it didn't affect me that much either way.
Yeah.
Like if I start drinking, because I've cut out soda now. I haven't drank soda. I mean, I don't drink soda anymore. But if I was putting that back into my diet now, it would significantly affect weight gain. It would significantly affect mood, whatever, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and even how the body deteriorates later on.
Well, and so what I'll bring back, even when you think about what that's doing to your body, if you take pop or soda and you look at the sugar content based on grams, but you also look at the sodium content, when you take that into your body, you realize what happens, right? You're jacking up your sodium content. Well, what does salt make you do? It makes you thirsty, but also retains water. Now, people told me when I drank like Diet Mountain Dew, they're like, that's a diuretic. And I'm like, no, actually, I don't. And, I have found a natural diuretic, which is dandelion. Yeah.
Didn't know that either.
So if I'm feeling like from being on my feet, or maybe there's a busy week and we eat out a couple extra times, and my sodium intake is higher, I'll just pop a dandelion pill, and then I'm going to the bathroom every 15 minutes.
It flushes you out.
It flushes me out, man. I'm telling you.
Wow.
And so when people are talking about the different additives, then I would just come back to and say, let's understand there are some natural things. I am not advocating that we all smoke weed. Mm-hmm. What I am saying, though, about weed is there's got to be room for consideration versus big pharma.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, when I get up in the morning, this morning, my alarm didn't even go off. I woke up at 4:17 and my mind was wide awake.
4:17.
Jekyll and Hyde, baby. Jekyll and Hyde. Found this mad Potter in me. I went to sleep at a reasonable time last night, got great rest, and 4:17, and I was there, and the dog was snoring, and I'm like, my alarm's going to go off at 4:45. I may just as well get up. And so I got up and
That's early.
yeah. Well, when people are like, "Hey, where's your energy?" I'm like, "You know what? Right now we're recording this at 11 a.m.
Yeah.
and that puts me at 5. I've been going strong for 7 hours already, and it's 11 a.m.
It's crazy.
I'm getting addicted to living an awake life. Who got woke?
Okay.
This guy.
Yeah, I usually am at 6.
Yeah.
I was watching the Dodgers in the wild card game last night.
Yeah, who won?
Dodgers.
Dodgers did, huh?
Bottom of the 9th, 2 outs.
Whoa.
Yeah, so I mean it was tied 1-1
Because they're in the game with St. Louis, right?
Right.
See, I'm listening to NPR again.
Right.
Yeah.
But it was just a one and done game because it was just 2 wild card seeds.
Oh, so they had to win to go forward.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's how they start the playoffs now, is they added that other wild card.
Yeah.
So then the 2 wild cards play each other. So then that wild card, then the winner of that one plays the top seed. So the top seed's supposed to then be playing the worst of the bunch.
Right.
Which in this case, the Dodgers are now going to play the Giants, and the Giants won 107 games this year.
Yeah.
And the Dodgers won 106 games this year.
So it's a fair.
So, I mean, and they're in the same division.
Yeah.
And so what happens then is that I think they said it's a record, for, I mean, a playoff series of how many people have won.
Or how many
games they
combined.
won. Right.
Yeah.
I think the last one was 212 combined, and now this one's a 213. But this is like the basically the first round of the playoffs, though, and so it's kind of it's a best of 5 and not the best of 7. So the best of 7 is the championship series.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this could be as big as the championship series.
Right.
Wow. Well, for all the sportos out there,
right,
just know.
Just throwing that in for everybody out there.
This is the season of Mr. October. Yeah. Reggie Jackson. See?
Mm-hmm. You're okay.
Yeah.
You're in the lingo. October baseball.
Hey, I can talk about a lot of stuff and hardly know anything about it. Did he play for the Astros?
No.
Okay.
I think he was the Yankees.
Reggie Jackson was the Yankees? All right.
Now it's...
This has taken me all the way back to like 1984, 1983, and I had a friend who, much like you, a very good friend of mine, who enjoyed baseball. Followed the Detroit Tigers. I actually got to see Mark the Bird Fidrich pitch a game in Tiger Stadium.
Yeah, there he is in a Yankee uniform.
Boom, right there on the middle screen for you. Picture in picture.
Yeah. I mean, there's a bunch of different Reggie Jacksons that come up, but this is the Reggie Jackson that we're talking about. And he... I'm trying to figure... I think that he was a Yankee. I don't know about his full career. Oh, there he is in an A's uniform.
Oh, see, now that's the Reggie Jackson I know. Is when he played for the A's. Because the A's aren't the Astros.
No, the A's are Athletics.
Athletics.
So that's the Northern California A's.
There you go. Hey, if anybody wants to see Netflix docu-series on baseball, there is The Battered Bastards of Baseball.
I watched that. It was good.
And so they say it's a lively and zesty documentary that screened at Tribeca in 2014. It's now streaming on Netflix. But I'm telling you, Bing Russell Bing Russell was the owner, put together a non-major league baseball team and tells the story. And these guys are like larger than when I watch that, I'm like, oh man, this is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's kind of like the, have you ever seen Moneyball? That was a movie. I think they had Brad Pitt.
And actually
based on the A's. And it was after they had lost some of their big bats, and they said, "What are we gonna do?"
Yeah.
And he said, instead of trying to come up with somebody who was hitting over 300 with high numbers of that, he's like, let's come up with 3 players who are gonna match that. It's almost looking at more of the like not just a big name, but a couple of like good guys.
Yeah.
And build it based on that, and then your percentages is the way that this is going to work better.
Yeah.
So lots of math, which where I'm at with math, but
yeah.
But there was lots of statistical things built in there that made the A's. I mean, that during that time they were after that I think they won a championship with that team. Billy Bean, I think, was his name. So. Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Sports talk.
Brad Pitt.
Brad Pitt.
Hey, if we were going to talk about beautiful men, I put Brad Pitt right there.
Yeah.
He's a beautiful man.
Yeah.
I like that he's friends with George Clooney too, who I really believe is the current day Ronald Reagan of Hollywood.
Like, meaning like political wise, like you're saying that he's going to run for office, or
I don't know that he may. George Clooney, listen, we've never had coffee, George Clooney and I.
Mm-hmm.
Never. So I have no idea. I just have this sense that he realizes the life he's living, and like I think it would take something really big to push him into the political arena.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying, when it comes to Hollywood mafia, George Clooney's king. Now, somewhere along the line, I may have read an article that influenced me that way. But I mean, again,
could be.
As a gentleman with salt and pepper hair and beard, and you know what? There's something about that dude's eyes and his smile. Brad Pitt, I get a totally different vibe. I like the bad boy-ness of Brad Pitt. I'm watching a little bit of Matthew McConaughey too. Talk about beautiful men.
Right.
Oh my gosh, Matthew McConaughey. So I'm watching True Detective right now, and I'm like, man, what a good actor. What a good actor. So, there.
Yeah, speaking of then Brad Pitt, I mean, I've loved some of his acting performances, like Fight Club, especially.
I got that on disc.
Yeah, loved Brad Pitt in that movie.
Yeah.
Inglourious Bastards.
See, now that is on my list to watch.
Oh, you haven't seen it?
I have not seen it. It's good.
I like it.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
That's probably a better way to say it.
Right.
Phil likes it.
I like it.
Yeah.
But then, if you're looking then at, so there were some people, because Inglourious Bastards is based on a group of people who were out there hunting Nazis. And then Amazon put together a series later on. I think it had Al Pacino in it.
Huh.
And I'm trying to remember the name of that show right now.
Oh, and actually, I started like one episode of that and just couldn't get on track. I know that you say you need to watch 3.
Mm-hmm.
Watch 3 episodes before you throw a series away.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. It's weird. And then I keep going back to these crazy fillers, where I watched Pitch Perfect again 2 nights ago, and just, I got that soundtrack in my head. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I just, bum, 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 bum.
Yeah, I just saw Anna Kendrick. There was came across like that she's really kind of small. I didn't realize she was like as small as what they were talking about, but apparently she's a tiny, tiny woman.
She does a lot of Broadway work.
Yeah.
Her vocals and stuff like that, which I mean, she really shines. But what I understand, she doesn't use chemical. Like, doesn't drink and you know.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
either.
yeah. I mean, like it's just one of those things that kind of stuck out. Yeah, and so yeah, additives. And so
bringing it back around.
Well, you know, you just start thinking about, well, let's keep it with baseball. Wasn't there a Cardinals dude who had a lot of home runs?
Yeah, Mark McGwire.
And basically it all got pinned down on additives. People giving him shots.
Human growth hormones.
Yeah.
Or steroids.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was when Mark McGwire and Barry Bonds were in that
duking
season
it out
with, I think, Sammy Sosa wasn't too far behind.
Right.
All of them were found to, I think Mark McGwire still is saying he didn't use any substances, but yeah. I mean, it was an abnormal season.
Yeah.
Like for somebody to say, no, I'm not using any substances.
Yeah.
So, and that's a big thing, like people are saying, so really what's why do we care that much? I mean, like, why ban a substance when everyone has the ability to use it? And, and so if you're, and they ultimately said, yeah, we're going to cut it off there. Well, what other substances aren't banned that you are still allowing? And why is some good and some not good? I mean, like looking at it, like if I was as a average person to take human growth hormones, like I'm not gonna be able to just jump into the MLB and say I'm going to smash home runs now because I took human growth. Like you still have to have a level of competency within the game in order to make sure that you're doing something like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know, and I'm not saying, I mean, because I know that there are side effects to but there's side effects to everything.
That's why, I mean, additives.
Right.
I mean, we're just asking people, what do you add into your Diet Coke? You know, rum and Coke, that's a favorite of some people. Right. I personally am not I don't enjoy rum.
I don't either.
Yeah. You'd have to drink it to enjoy it. And nah. So, yeah, additives. Now, as we've talked about additives, like in ingredients, we've talked about additives with drugs. What other scope of our lives, how do additives, like, what is the human condition about additives?
What is the human condition about additives?
Well, I mean, just like if walking through the park can appeal to your senses, or how has culture shaped what we can and can't get through life with or without? I mean, the reality is, I mean, we've talked about minds of the past and how, I mean, I'll just pick this out just as an example. Martin Luther translated Hebrew Greek text into German to be able to give the populace, the people, a German Bible to read.
Right.
Okay. If you want to go in a different route, Eugene Peterson or Patterson?
Peterson.
Yeah, Eugene Peterson wrote I wouldn't call it a translation. I would call it a transliteration of the Bible. What's the name of that?
The Message.
The Message, yeah. And it came out, actually, kind of interestingly, on his thing, he didn't publish the whole transliteration of the Bible in the Message as a whole. I think the first thing he popped out was either the Psalms or the Gospels. And then, when it was so eagerly received, of course we're talking corporate greed, the publishers are like, hey, keep going with this. This is hitting people. I love reading that just because, again, you and I both love words and how the interpretation of words and how things are phrased. It's a modern day, now I know all the devout,
that the message becomes the lightning rod.
Oh, yeah, but you know what it took the lightning rod off of?
Huh.
The New International Version.
Oh, right.
The NIV, which was, I think, I think it may be one of the few translations that was copyrighted. And everybody's all worked up about whether Mary was a virgin or not a virgin in the Gospels based on the translation of, the NIV.
Right.
And, hey, after my last watching of Tom Hanks in the Da Vinci Code series, the reality is there are a lot of sacred texts that didn't pass the canon. And so, everybody just calm down and just hold on. All I'm saying in regards to here was a brilliant man. Well, did Martin Luther have cable TV? No. I don't think Martin Luther had electricity. 1400s? So, when the sun came up, Martin Luther woke up. When the sun went down, he lit a candle. The study of, there were less distractions. What are the additives? What are the distractions in life that keep us? Or what are the things? There are additives in everything, and
sure.
To your point earlier, what makes one additive more wrong than another additive?
Right.
If the playing field is equal. And I don't know. I just start going, down the line of a lot of pent up anger. I believe in our current day is the anger that's pent up from. You see people throwing rocks about. The haves and the have-nots. You see people throwing rocks. We've talked about this in the past, the dualistic mind of that one side has to have another side that can be an enemy. And I just wonder what things of life are an additive that do affect quality of life. And hey, and you're talking to a guy that I probably have never been at a time where I have had as much canned media taken in. Now I'm even starting to think about this. I'm like, man, thankfully I got the record player going and I can start playing some music. But I was just like, man, I should probably be listening to some informative podcasts that cause me to think in different way, But I just got Pitch Perfect on for on repeat for 30 times through or whatever, whatever the other movie is, or you know what I'm saying. But additives.
But the additives that you currently have are leading you to the place where you're at, right? Yeah. So if you're consuming more news, right, then you're going to be, I would say, if all day, every day consuming news, you're going to be fearful of the world because you're going to see the exact level of what's happening, because they're giving you stories that are going to be most of it not filled with good news. It's going to be filled with terror, because fear sells just like sex sells.
Yeah.
And so if you're putting out there and if you're consuming then news 24/7, you're going to be filled with a lot of fear, I think.
Yeah. And you know what? I used to listen to NPR a lot more on my commute. Mm-hmm. I might catch 5 or 7 minutes, but I'm just so done with the current running commentary that and you and I were talking about it earlier. I really, and people who take us in, whether it's on the podcast or who know me publicly, personally, people are like, man, I don't read you as an introvert, and quite frankly, I'm very happy as an introverted person.
Right.
I mean, and even to the point of where now I'm telling people that I'm becoming a hermit. I literally, my interface with any person, with the only person that I have more interface time than with you, and I have 3 hours on Thursday with you.
Right.
Okay. And then, my wife.
Uh-huh.
And it's not like I'm not talking to people on the phone if they call or,
Sure.
but I literally, and I'm not sad
Mm-hmm.
about it. And so I'm like,
Right.
I'm living out a season of hermitage. And
The desert fathers.
and that's the part, I think that's the part weighing on my conscience level of living out this life that I'm living, is that I'm like, that I probably should do some more, have a higher level of commitment of taking in deeper things in like thought-provoking research, and stuff like that. So like, I mean, because I was doing really good at reading books and it was through the winter, and then the summer came, and then it's a lot of being company, having company, the summer run.
Sure.
And so like the turn of this weather actually brings me into a place where I'm like, oh, thank God we're going into a
Can lock it down now.
yeah, I mean, just this, and I mean, really, we're busy through the end of November, and so, but yeah, additives,
Hmm.
Yeah,
So I think the other, if you're looking at it, we as a people, I believe, I think, are very much consumer minded. So we consume lots of things. And so whether or not that, and we're talking about food, I mean, yeah, we can be consumers of that as well. But I mean, social media becomes, thrown in the mix there, which I, believe that there's a lot of toxicity that comes from that place.
yeah,
And like it doesn't give me good vibes on humanity when I look at social media.
yeah,
Like, I mean, yes, you can say, oh, but you're only looking at the bad. Like, yeah, but there's a lot of there's a lot of things. Like, I don't want to know that about you, and that's really what it comes. Like, I had a good view of you, maybe even as a person, humanity wise, and then you put out this stuff like I don't want to know that about you. You know what? And I'm not talking about you. I'm just talking about like humanity. Like, oh, like I really, thought highly of your opinion, and now it kind of reduces slightly. And that's a problem for me
yeah,
because I want to look well upon humanity and not look at humanity like I'm this is an opportunity to, once again see that that people are flawed.
yeah,
But the same thing that comes up, like there's, Heather brings up, she kind of navigates the neighborhood app, and there's somebody who's like, hey, I'm looking, my wife and I are looking for a church, and then of course, on the neighborhood app, somebody comes across it again and says, oh, well, like, why would you want to believe in fairy tales? There's plenty of things in society that you can get the same connection with, like, and then she gets upset, like, why are people jumping it? Like, he's
right,
asking for something. Why can't people just hey, you know what? I'm going to keep scrolling. Like, I don't know why, but this is where humanity is flawed. This is where humanity is like, do you really want to engage in that?
Yeah.
Like, I don't. I
Yeah.
don't anymore.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't lead me anywhere healthy mentally to jump into these things. I mean, this is the reason why I've like further unengaged from social media.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've talked about this but it's another additive that can lead to unknown consequences. Like if you're feeding yourself with this stuff.
Yeah.
If you're feeding yourself with news, if you're like, it's gonna have a consequence.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it could be. I mean, you can say there could be something good from it. I'm not saying it's like throw out everything. But like for me, it doesn't do me well to jump into it and just like wade around in those waters.
Yeah. Well, and I think when it comes to you see all kinds, and from what I see of people. There are, I'm profiling right now, there are people who see social media as the place where they have nowhere else to have a voice, so they want it to be the place where their voice is heard. But what they face is, because of the algorithms, because of the topics, then they move into a place where emotionally they're tied to how they were received, when in reality, again, I don't think everybody's out to get us, but I think we have to be at least open to the idea that all of these social media platforms are platforms that have smarter people than us who are programming, getting information, and doing all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And so, your interaction and, what's going on, it not only is it being watched, but they're also forming and sending things your way and do want to influence you on how you're thinking, especially if your worldview is different from the people who sit around the big tables making decisions on how things can be shaped in this world. Right. And to your point, I mean, man, it's like what people, look back at the last, I don't know, you and I have known each other since 2005?
Yeah, somewhere in there.
2005, 2006, somewhere in there. Yeah. So 15 years. We've known each other for 15 years. In the last 15, and by the way, social media was a thing 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So think about how many life-changing relationships have you developed and participated in 15 years on social media?
Maybe a handful.
Okay. So, I mean, that was actively your purpose.
Right.
But there was a turn that took place, and now you're willing to say, this is not healthy for me mentally.
Right.
Yeah. It's a bad additive. I used to drink Diet Pop all the time. When my body didn't respond to it correctly, and I asked a question, what did I do? I eliminated it. People are like, oh my gosh. The only reason I have Instagram and Facebook right now is because I want to sell some pottery down the road. That's the only, otherwise.
And the podcast.
Well, yeah, and the podcast too. I mean, but that's YouTube. Right. I don't have to, like.
That's true.
Right. I mean, and yeah, I'm telling you, man, hermitage. But you still have to, engage and be a part, and community, humanity.
Right.
I am, and now I. So this is just me being more transparent. One of the things that I needed to do as I opened up my pottery studio is I needed to take time just to refine my skill set because it had been so long since I'd thrown. So now I'm moving into that, and I'm actually thinking of phases of what that business looks like. And now I have people who are inquiring and saying, hey, are you going to have classes? Well, yeah, 2022, first quarter, gonna look at launching, some classes and, and be able to do that. But now, in that, I'm thinking about as an isolationist, how do I really want to do that?
Mm-hmm.
And so then that becomes how I know I'm on the right path. And this has always been a case study of myself for me.
Mm-hmm.
Is part of my life has to be going in a direction that I personally wouldn't really want it to go. Like emotion,
Right.
For me to be open to doing things that others are asking for versus what I have in my mind that I want to, for the sake of that. If this, it to me, it's a healthy pain. It's a healthy molding and pushing into a direction.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, I just really am considering that in regards, I mean, I don't know that inside me I really want to sit around and be with other people but I know that what will come from that will be better things for humanity, community, and and those things. I think on Criminal Minds I heard the quote, what you do for yourself is lost when you die, but what you do for others continues on forever. And just the idea of, as you pass on things to the next generation, whether it's your children or carrying out, or how you're moving in motion of, that you would be kind to others. And when you hear people, when people are walking up to me and saying, oh my gosh, I haven't had a creative outlet in so long, but I would so love to be able to come to the studio and create. And at that point I have to say, oh, it's not my own little bubble. There's a greater thing at work here, and I'm using thing, but actually you could say power, and from power you could move into deity, and then in deity you would say this unseen force is at work in a way to say, yes, Steve, but not only does this person need this, you need to be able to be in this, because there's influence that can occur. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't want to be a magnet in the universe, you jerk. And so anyway,
Right. And that's the difficulty, right? I mean, so you're looking at areas that that you're pulled towards,
yeah.
that are be like, yeah, but I kind of like the hermitage.
Oh,
I kind of like this. Why do I have to be pulled? And there's like, because this isn't all about you. It's not all about me.
I know.
And that's a hard part.
Yeah.
I want it to be about me.
So then there's this part of, there's an additive. The universe is saying, hey, oh, by the way, I want to add this into your, and you're like, whoa. And yet we both, I think, if I speak for us in this regard, we recognize that there is a beauty and there is a healthiness in community. And so when we find ourselves being isolated, or we are choosing to isolate, a lot of isolation, when you look at mental health, isolation isn't a good thing.
Right.
And yet, then why am I running towards it? It's so comfortable.
It's true.
Now, if this is whether this is my ego snarling out saying, no, I want to defend, our stance here, Coble, come on. I'm actively involved in creating, and in its process of refinement, I'm really enjoying the journey. And so there is that.
Right.
But I don't know whether it was a couple weeks ago or whatever, I just realized like this part of, oh, hey, welcome to phase 1, or actually this is like probably phase 2, because phase 3, so, there was restoration with the space, getting things set up. That was phase 1. Phase 2, creating, refining, actually getting my muscle memory back, and, and moving down the road. And then, 3 will be opening for community and for the development of community in regards to that. And, and then phase 4, there's phase 4, and then there's phase 5, and then there's, and you
don't even know what those look like yet, maybe.
I have some strong pushings on phase 4 and phase 5.
Oh, do you?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. It's a little premature for me to be able to speak into the universe, said things, but the universe and I have been in discussions in regards. And the other part is I've really, a personal prayer of mine has been more water and agility. And so for me as a potter, when I pour water onto clay, it becomes more pliable. Now, if you add too much water, you got a bowl of soup. Mud soup, not attractive, not workable, and yet still has its own place in pottery because slip is used all the time.
Yeah.
So I just pray, hey, more water, and then to make me more pliable, so I'm not and I think it's from our discussions that the older I get, the more I want to set in my ways, be set in my ways. I want to be rigid that way because that's a really safe place for me to be.
Right.
And yet then nimble. How flexible, how nimble can I be that when a curveball's sent my way, that because I really am, and whether I've thought through it or haven't thought through it, if I give my word, I really work hard. I don't try to get out of things that I shouldn't have even agreed to. I'm like, no, I committed to this, I'll do this, and so I need nimbleness to be able to navigate the things, and then just a recognition that the very essence of what puts thoughts in my head is the very essence at work, luring me into carrying out the things that this essence would have me to do.
I really loved that illustration, though, because I didn't know where you were going to go with, like, a goal of mine is to, more water. And I'm like, oh, yeah, like everyone needs to drink more water. And, you're supposed to drink, like, half your body weight in water every day, which that's a crazy amount. And I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's people out there who achieve that goal. But I think for the most part, people are missing that.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking you're like, oh, so healthy, like you're going to add water. But I love the image that you're bringing to the table, to the pottery. And you're saying like, yeah, like it can, too much water, it's a mess, but still has its function.
Yeah.
But how do you find that right amount of water so that you can be pliable, you can be also useful to be, in that creative space? Yeah, well, that's great.
Well, and like I've been working for 2 days on I did coffee cups in a porcelain stoneware, and in my early days doing pottery, I found that clay maddening. It didn't feel good in my hands. It was very plasticky. It's the reason a lot of people like to use it is because it's very pliable, very moldable. You can get great imagery and shapes out of it. It's easy to work with. It's not hard on your hands. I know this is a big surprise to everyone. I have a tendency to like the rougher, groutier, just rustic clay bodies, because I like the rawness of it. It goes to any band any band I'll listen to. I love their first album more than the third because it's not overproduced, you know. But anyway, here's another thing of as we grow and as we evolve, man, I really liked it. Well, so I had like lumps of clay over and I went and pinched it. I'm like, oh man, that is too hard. I can't throw that on the wheel. So I've been working 2 days on, wedging this clay and cutting lines in it and adding water and letting it sit for a couple hours. And I finally, just before I came over here, I've got 12 pounds that I'm going to turn into a larger pot. And, like, it was just one of those things. I'm like, in theory, I should wait till tomorrow, because after wedging it, I should just let it sit and let all the particles, just like in food, where people are like, I don't know why the chili tastes better the second day. And it's because all the flavors got to know each other. Right? And so, like, it's the same way.
Additives.
Yeah, right. And it's the same way with clay, is that, all the particles, they get aligned, and I've wedged them in a way where they're spiraled. And so then as I sit them on the wheel, I'll put the spiral in the way so that as it's turning, the spiral's going in the same shape. There's all these things that people are like, wow, that's more than I've ever thought about. I'm like, well, yeah, but I'm living the life of a hermitage. And so in my hermitage, these are the things that I get to like think about and work through and stuff like that. And, but yeah, still, it really is. And the cool thing is that I know from me working through, okay, I need clay not too soft, but I need clay not too hard. And just as I work through it, I'm like, you know what? You need to care. You need to take time and care. You need to take time and do the work that you know you should do, and you just need to just take the time. Now, what I do know over the last 3 months, you'll look at work that I'm doing right now. The work that I was doing 3 months ago doesn't resemble a thing. And the evolution of my craft coming back and how I'm thinking about this stuff is evolving into a higher level of craft, of creativity. And so, like, there's that coming out of life too.
Yeah.
And so when I say I'm throwing out to the universe, hey, bring me, just water me down. Let me not be so stiff and brittle. Help me to be pliable. I know when I answer quickly and I'm short, and it's because I'm connected to a thought that I had earlier that was already talked about. That's my brittleness. And what I'm saying is, hey, soften me up. How am I going to be able not to see what I can get, but what can I be able to receive in the moment, to be able to give in the moment. And when I say receive, I'm asking for wisdom to discern. Those are the words that go to that. So, yeah, I don't know. I just know that a really comfy place for me is not to be around anyone except for the favorite people in my life.
Oh, yeah, that to me, that's the scope of this episode, is that right there, that picture. I mean, because we've talked about those things in the past, but that image kind of brings it to like something that I to me, everyone likes visual pieces.
Yeah.
And so you're like, how did that pot become a pot?
Yeah.
Like, how did that cup become a cup? Well, it was molded. It was shaped. It was formed.
Yeah.
And those things don't just happen.
No.
Like, there's somebody who's at the pottery wheel. There's somebody who's been, shaping it and forming it. And to me, I think that's the way that we can look at ourselves. Like, what is shaping and forming me right now, and what's coming out?
Which
Is
that's
it good? Is it not so good? If it's not so good, then let's look at some more pliability.
and when you say that, that's the additives.
Right.
You know, gosh, when I was reclaiming, which is the term for taking used up clay and turning it into workable clay. And so I probably have, I don't know, 20 or 25 pounds of clay on the plaster bat right now drying out. And as I wedged this stuff, and as I pounded this down, I don't know, somewhere, I felt a shard. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what do I have in here? Now, I had a bucket of clay once that I shattered the bucket with the drill tool that stirs up clay.
Yeah.
I ended up having to throw it all out because this bucket shattered, and there was so many plastic pieces in. If I would have put it on the wheel, it would have chewed my hands up.
Ooh.
And I'm like, so I pick out this shard. It wasn't glass. It was a piece of broken clay tile, like out of the flooring tile. I don't know.
Got in there.
I don't know where I picked it up. I have no idea where it got picked up from.
Yeah.
But the reality is it was there, and I'm like, oh, thank God. I don't think the whole batch of clay is ruined.
Right.
But but you got to take that stuff out. The foreign objects got to take out. Second foreign object, most common foreign object that I'm picking out of the clay, my beard hair. The good news is when I'm stirring stuff up with the drill stir thing, the hair winds around it. So that's a good purifying place to be at.
Yeah.
I mean, some purists would actually take their clay all the way down to the liquid form and strain it through like a screen grate to be able to get any of the large objects and things like that. But I'm not a purist when it comes to that. Yeah. But in that imagery, the other thing is that there are carving tools. And I just think that we can play that within community, that I realize that I'm being used still in relationship to shape other people. What moves me from being self-centered is for me to be open to see how other people are being used to shape me. And if I'm going through life and no one else is shaping me, that's a problem.
It is.
Seen and unseen. And people are like, now you're freaking me out. I'm like, oh, welcome to your favorite mystic, Steve.
Right. Because there's things at work.
Oh, yeah.
There's things at work.
Absolutely.
And yes, mysticism can lead to obviously there's something larger than us. And if it's larger than us and it's at work, like, we're not going to be able to usually stop that unless we're throwing up barriers and all kinds of other stuff.
Well, it's usually, it accompanies misery. And, yeah. So, all right.
I think that's good.
That's a good chat?
I think it's a good chat, and I think it's a perfect image for, how we should look at ourselves. So,
yeah.
Hopefully, everyone else out there, listening, watching, you can kind of understand where you're at, and maybe you need to be more pliable. Maybe you need to say the same thing, like, hey, it's time to add some water. So,
Additives. Hey, well, thanks a lot, everybody, for joining us on our We're Back episode. We're back. Season 4, Episode 1. And why I'm talking in a really high-pitched voice with lots of energy is I'm going to tell you, in this episode, you just heard us move from the drug cartel all the way to being dirt. Welcome back. Cut daisies and unicorns. This channel will take you into places around the universe you've never been before. And I think we hit that on the head.
We did. All right, everybody. Take care and continue to explore. figure out what this is all about.
Yeah. Hey, feel free to let us know about your favorite garden hose experience.
Right.
When you've been doused or drenched. What it feels like to get pliable. Or if you're just like, you know what, I've had enough of this shit. I'm out.
And if you do say that, why? I mean, because there's always a why underneath. You just don't want to be pliable. You don't want to be challenged. You don't want to be. Yeah, I mean, is that the reason?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right.
All right, everybody.
Tired dogs, take a
Peace.
nap.